let's be formal. Let's call the Vermont School Board Association meeting to order on September 11th at 5 o'clock. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And let me see. I want to urge our Vermont School Board Association board members to attend the pre-conference workshop and the celebration of public education on October 24th. So please mark your calendars. And the conference on the 25th. And if you could try to, each of you, bring 1 or 2 more people with you, that would be great. Neil is getting beer for you. No, just kidding. But we just want to urge more board members to attend, right? So, I also, reflecting on that we want to have more people come to the celebration, not just to the conference, but also the celebration of public education. I would like you to think about what is happening in your schools this month that you are proud or would like to highlight. And we will reflect on that at the end of the meeting. We might take a little time before we go into executive session, just so we know a little bit of what's going on around our board and our districts. So with that, to not keep us here too long, welcome, Sonia. Thank you for joining us. We're going to start with a report from the policy committee.
Okay,
so
I'm going to provide that report, Flor, because it's actually 2 different committees that worked on the policies. The policies themselves, policy D3 requires that every 2 years, the VSBA have a committee that reviews the board's policies, and that is the policy committee. But there are a number of policies at the beginning in section A that are financial policies. So the finance committee reviews those financial policies. So there are not a lot of changes recommended this year, but there are a few. And so what I can do, do you think it would be helpful for me to share my screen? Okay, I will share my screen so that you can see what they are. They are in your packet.
Rating, Elixir, Sue Zaglowski, VSBA, she/her, has started screen sharing, displaying Sue's notification bar, button, collapse.
Okay, so on the first page here, you can see that we're just changing the date to 2024 to note that we're updating these in September of 2024. Moving on to the financial policies. You can see under A2 that there's just a change in the language regarding checks of the VSBA. It says all checks of the VSBA shall be signed by any of the following. And it used to say executive director, comma, a director, comma, or any board member so appointed by the board of directors. And we, the committee recommends changing a director to associate executive director. That makes it consistent with what the bylaws say, and also it's unclear what a director meant, whether that meant someone from the board of directors or a lot of our employee titles have director in them. So that's the first recommendation. Moving on. Under professional development, there have been some changes with the National School Boards Association regions. And so you can see here that we've changed Northeast Regional to Eastern Region. And that is because the NSBA does not have a Northeast region any longer. It has, that region has been changed to be renamed to the Eastern Region. And further down, on the same page, you can see the authorized voting delegates are entitled to certain expenses when they go to the NSBA National Convention. And one of the things that is recommended to be changed is the reimbursement rate for meals and other actual itemized expenses. It's right now reimbursed at an average of $60 per day. And the recommendation is to change that to $80 per day due to inflation. That number hasn't been increased in at least 5 years. Moving on to the NSBA conferences. This section, we're just eliminating reference to the Federal Relations Network and the Leadership Conference because NSBA has been going through a number of changes with its own conferences and when they're held and what they're called. And so these those two events don't exist any longer. So we're changing the approach here and just referring to NSBA conferences because there's been quite a bit of changes at the NSBA as to what they're calling their conferences and when they're holding them. And then again, down here, you'll see the change from the reimbursement rate from $60 a day to $80 per day. And again, the change from Northeast region to Eastern region. So I believe those are all, yes, those are all of the changes that were recommended to the financial policies. Are there any questions about those before I move on to the changes that are recommended by the policy committee to the rest of the policies?
I don't see any hands up.
Gaston.
So.
Yeah, Gaston.
Oh, there.
Gaston has a hand up.
Yeah, I'm really sorry for making these comments, but I will anyway. So on page 2, where you have the associate executive director, and as well preceding it, you have executive director, and those are not caps. I've noted a number of places where executive director is capitalized in some places, and it's not capitalized in others. So what I'm wondering is if we couldn't be consistent throughout the document and ensure that, I mean, I prefer that. I would say capitalize them. So associate executive director would be capitalized as well, but I defer to the group for that. So there's that.
That's a great point, Gaston. We can certainly make that consistent throughout the document.
Okay, and then also on page 3, when you talk about the NSBA, the Eastern region, what I'm wondering is if up above the first sentence where you first spell out NS, the National School Board Association, if there you wouldn't put in parens NSBA so that, the first time you see it spelled out and you identify what the acronym is, and then subsequently, then the acronym makes sense. I just think that perhaps would be helpful. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks for the suggestions.
Yeah, and then lastly, I think on page 4, the last 2 Eastern region comments, I noticed that there's the pronouns his or her. And so I kind of wonder if we want to, change that to there.
Absolutely. That's such a great catch. Thank you for all of those. We can definitely make those changes.
Again, I'm really sorry. I just,
Oh, don't
looking
apologize.
through and I'm like, oh, wait a minute here. So anyway, sorry. Over.
Oh, those are all really helpful suggestions. So no need to apologize. Any other questions or suggestions on the financial policies before we move into the other section of the policies? All right, let us move on. This is about document retention, and there are no changes on this page. The next section is about communications, and there are a few recommended changes under B2 endorsements. As you can see, it's recommended to delete the language that says the VSBA shall not endorse products or services, and add a sentence that says any endorsement of products or services must be approved by the VSBA board after consideration of the ramifications. And this was discussed quite a bit in relation to some work that had been, some sort of preliminary work that had been done with board docs. Looking at the possibility of VSBA not necessarily endorsing board docs, but having some type of agreement with them that would allow our members to get a better price on the product. We really haven't pursued that, but I think the idea from the policy committee was that this possible change in the language would allow the VSBA to consider that type of arrangement, and it would have to be approved by the board after consideration of the ramifications. So that's the first proposed change. The next proposed change is under publication distribution, and that is just sort of updating with the times, because it talks about single copies of publications being distributed, and most of the time now we're doing electronic copies. So we changed that to printed or electronic copies. And I think that was the last change. I'm just scrolling through to see, but I think that was everything. So there wasn't much, but are there comments or questions on the policy committee recommendations that I just reviewed? Yep, that was everything. I'll go back up to the one that I just spoke about in case anyone has a question.
I see Gaston's hand up. So
Yeah, so again, I'm very sorry, but you know, on the first one under endorsements, you have the board of directors and it's in lowercase. And there are places throughout the document where we go back and forth from lowercase to capitalized. So just to be consistent again throughout the document. Other than that,
Audio now unmuted.
yeah, so sorry. Thank you.
About to
Over.
raise your hand. You are-
Thanks, Gaston. It looks like Mark Kaufman has a hand up.
It's more a question than anything else. 501c3 endorsements of commercial products are a very gray area, and I leave that to all of you legal masterminds. Has this been vetted through that lens?
We didn't specifically talk about that, Mark, but we did, add the language that says the board would have to approve it after consideration of the ramifications.
Thank you.
Stop my video button. Displaying Sue Siglowski. Displaying Sue Siglowski. Displaying audio now unmuted. The host mute.
your computer really wants to talk to you. So, yeah. Okay. So could I have a motion to approve the changes?
Sarah Sweet, I'll move that we accept the changes as presented by Sue.
Yes, and Bethlon, I'll second that motion. Over.
Thank you. Both. You got that, Carrie? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you, everybody. So let's move into our awards committee report. Nancy?
Okay. So you have the copy of the minutes from the June meeting of our committee and the July committee minutes of our committee meeting. So I'm going to presume that most of you have at least looked at them. So we don't really need to go over them unless someone has a question or unless Deb has a correction. Then I would like to just go over a little bit about the Stafford Bell Award. Some of you might not know what that is, and I thought might be a good time to just give you a quick history. And this was named after Senator Robert T. Stafford. He was a staunch environmentalist and a champion of education, which is all of our hearts. He served 2 years as the governor of Vermont from 1958 until 1960. He served 11 years in the U.S. House of Representatives from 1961 to 1971 and 17 in the U.S. Senate from 1971 to 1989. During his time in the Senate, Stafford was instrumental in developing legislation that provided rights for special needs children, another thing that's really close to my heart, to be included in mainstream public school classes. And in 1988, Congress saluted his dedication to education measures, renaming the Federal Guaranteed Student Loan Program the Robert T. Stafford Student Loan Program. The low interest rates are now known almost universally as Stafford loans to the millions who qualify for them each year. He was known as a gentle legislator from Vermont, able to bring Washington politics into a common area by working closely with colleagues from both parties. So this award was established in 1988 to recognize and honor Senator Stafford as he retired from the U.S. Senate. The award is intended to honor those who, like Senator Stafford, shown exceptional dedication to supporting the public schools and serving the children of Vermont on a regional, state, and/or a national level. So when we met, we set down some criterias of what we thought would be the best criterias, and we kind of agonized over these, didn't we, Deb? To get down what we really wanted for it to be, and not make it so lengthy that people would get tired of reading it before they ever got through filling out the nomination form. Our own Don Collins was the last recipient in 2023 for this award. I think it's a really great award. We are a little behind on our dates, and between Deb having to be out of the office and I was out of the office for 2 weeks and all this time frame that we were trying to get this done. So if there's no questions or comments, I'm going to move on to the annual distinction award. In our June meeting, we had concluded that we would not reinstate this award, but in our July meeting, after we talked about it some more, we decided that yes, that we would reinstate this, but that we would that we wanted it to be for a whole board. And am I right, Deb? I got that right, for a whole board, right? Okay. We got it. We wanted to reinstate it for a whole board instead of just a school board superintendent, chair. And we're hoping that with the advent of the governance standards under DQS, that this will this recognition of a whole board could be an incentive to meet the compliance with the new standards. We have not set what the criteria is for this particular award, or the format for submitting it to the board. We will get that done within the next 4 weeks, right, Deb? We're going to do this. We're going to get this finished. My apologies for not getting it done sooner, but there were some extenuating circumstances that prevented a couple of us from being able to meet. Does anybody have any questions on all of that muddy water?
I don't see any
We're not
hands up, Nancy. You
I'm
did
sorry?
a really good job. I don't see any hands up, but you did a really
Well,
good
deal.
job.
Well, we don't
Yeah.
have anything to present to the board to vote tonight, so we will
Okay.
have at the next meeting. Okay.
That sounds
Thank you.
great. Thank you, Nancy. And thank you, Debbie, and the committee. So let's move into our quarterfinal report, our fourth quarterfinal report, and I'll pass it on to our treasurer, Jim.
Okay, thank you, Flor. Okay, this being the fourth quarter, it's actually, we're talking about a full year report, technically. And what's in your package is the 12 months, the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. And the results as they came out, basically we had I'm happy to take any questions, specifics or anything, but it was a pretty good year. You see that the income came in above budget. Biggest factor there being actually investments with our switch in our approach to investments. Searches were up quite a bit too, but then when search income is up, search expenses are up as well. So that on a net basis was just a little bit above budget. The other big factor for the year was actually the visit service agreement, where you see it's below budget on the income line by around 40,000. That's really because it was an off year for negotiations, and our expenses associated with supporting the employer commissioners were significantly lower than we had originally budgeted, actually lower by about 65,000. So we, in the end, made the decision to forego the final payment that we would have received from VSBA, which would have been, roughly in the territory of 40,000. Especially since our expenses were lower by 65,000. So net, we told VSBA we didn't need that final payment this year. It kind of helps keep us in the good graces of VSBA too, because they're a very important provider of funds to our overall operations. So I think they appreciated that, but still the net was between the expenses and the income positive to our bottom line for about 25,000 for the year. Other expenses to note for the year, personnel expenses overall ended up a bit below budget, and about 20,000. That was really due to all of the changes in our personnel during the year. We had a busy year of changes that led to some gaps and all, and we ended up 20,000 below budget. The other expense items that were significant, the NSBA, are sending people to the NSBA. Lori's saving us a lot of money by getting on the NSBA board, so we ended up about 12,000 below budget for 2024, fiscal 2024. And we're also below on staff travel and development by about 12,000. So, the net result was a positive bottom line. Puts us in a good position. We've next year's budget, as you may all recall from going over the budget, sees an increase from where an increase in the budget size from last year. We take the surplus for this year was rolled straight into next year's budget. So that was supporting our ability to hold down dues for next year to a reasonable level. It was in our budget from last year. So the balance sheet is there as well. We're in pretty good shape. And I welcome any. Well, one comment on the balance sheet. If you guys are looking at it, I'm going to probably be talking to Carrie and Sue a little bit more. One thing you'll see in the equity accounts, we have two separate accounts for unrestricted net assets and net income, and the dynamics of those numbers are a little bit funky. Honestly, the two of those can kind of be rolled into a single number. It provides a much cleaner view. So if you're looking at where do we stand, we have our restricted assets and then our unrestricted assets and net income. You can roll them into one, and that gives you a better view of where we stand. So that's happy to take any questions. Gaston.
Yeah. Hey, Jim, thanks. I have to say that there's the one item on your income sheet there that went up by almost 6,000%. And so my first comment is, holy cow, that really made a big difference in terms of investment opportunity. But was that $700 based on past performance in terms of income on those investments, or was that just an underestimate? I'm just sort of trying to wrap my head around. I mean, it's awesome for sure. Over.
Yeah, the 700, if we had never changed our investment approach, it probably would have been a good number. Because we had been putting, while rates have come up, we historically put it into, bank deposit accounts, CDs, things like that. And those have been very sticky as far as increasing over time, even as, the money market account that we have at Vanguard, has been earning close to 5%. But if you go to, Carrie was trying to shop like crazy to get the best CD rates we could get, and they were far lower. So it's, expect this to continue to be positive, but it is going to add volatility to our results. To kind of, so, you don't expect, us knocking it out of the park every time, and you may see some negative results from time to time. Over the longer run, these are, restricted funds we don't expect to need on a frequent basis. So if we see a little bit of dip, it probably it shouldn't be too bothersome from the standpoint of these funds should be around for a while unless, something really bad happens and we need them. And over time, they should grow at a much better clip than they have historically. Any other questions?
Any other?
Neil? Who? No?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay.
Oh, wow, we're cruising along. Good job, guys. Thank you, Jim. That was very clear. And thank you for all the work to our finance committee. Could I have a motion to approve the report?
Yes, this is Gaston. I'll make that motion. Over.
And
Barbara,
second?
I second it, Barbara.
Thank you, Barbara. Got that, Carrie? Any more discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
I think I see all ayes. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you, everybody. So we're going to move into our strategic plan monitoring report. And Sue is going to get us started on that.
Thank you, Floor. As explained at the board retreat and also at the August board meeting, we're taking a new approach to reviewing the strategic plan monitoring report at your board meetings, and we'll be focusing on one goal area at each meeting. Last month, we focused on the first goal area, which is stakeholder engagement. And you'll recall we had a discussion about the word stakeholder. Today, we will focus on the second goal area, which is systems and resources. First, I wanted to just refresh everyone's understanding of how the monitoring report is set up. We went over this at the last meeting, but there were a few people that weren't able to be at the last meeting, so I'll just quickly go over this. So please go to page 21 of your packet for this meeting, and there you're going to see the foundation of the strategic plan. That is the beliefs, vision, mission, and goals, which were developed 2 years ago in a thorough and inclusive process involving the membership of the VSBA. As you can see, there are 4 goals on that page. And the second one is provide relevant and timely systems, resources, and professional development for school boards and individual members. At the August board meeting, we reviewed how the monitoring report is set up. For each goal, there are objectives on the far left of the page. Those are identified by the board. And then under each objective, there are key results in the middle of the page, identified by the staff as ways to reach the objective that the board has identified. And then on the far right, you'll see that the staff reports on activities in progress for each key result. Before we get into reports on activities in progress, are there any questions about how the monitoring report is set up? I don't see any, so I'm going to keep going. This evening, we're focusing on the second goal set out on page 21, which is systems and resources. So I'll say it again, provide relevant and timely systems, resources, and professional development for school boards and individual members. Excuse me. Reporting on goal 2 starts on page 26 of your board packet and runs through page 30. Today, we're going to work our way down from the goal to the first objective under that goal to the 6 key results under that objective. So on the far left on page 27, you can see that the first objective under the systems and resources goal is provide relevant and timely information, resources, and professional development for school board members and boards. To the right of that objective on pages 26 through 28 are the key results that the staff has developed to achieve the objective. As we report on this section of the monitoring report, please keep in mind these questions. These are the same questions we provided to you at the last meeting, and we'll be doing it every time we review this report. Are there topics you think belong in the key results that staff should consider? Is there other information you would like to see reported? So let's look at the first key result. It's 2.1.1, and it pertains to pre-service or school board candidates. And what it says is by December 31st, 2025, conduct an annual webinar for potential school board candidates that has 40 registrants and an overall satisfaction rating of 4.5 on a 5-point scale. Activities in progress under this key result are going to be reported by Debbie today. And actually, Debbie's going to be reporting on a lot of these key results today because they fall into her area of work. So I'll hand it over to Debbie to talk about KR 2.1.1.
Thanks, Sue. Hi, everybody. So as you can see, we actually met and even exceeded by a little bit the number of registrants for our very first webinar last December, which we called Get On Board. And this webinar was delivered to prospective board candidates. So we decided, since we already met that goal, we will increase it a little bit to 50. So we're hoping to get 50 participants at the same webinar this coming December. And I just wanted to bring to your attention the fact that this webinar is actually part of a larger campaign by the same name that we launched last year and that will repeat again. So the aim of this campaign is to support districts in their candidate recruitment efforts. And if you don't know about it and want to learn more, I encourage you to go to the VSBA website, and under the resources tab, you will see a page called Filling Board Vacancies. And this page is designed and meant for boards to use to help them with getting the word out about their board vacancies. There's also a page under the resources tab called Get On Board. Then this page is written very much for members of the public who are might be interested in running or considering a run for the school board in their district. And both of these pages are unlocked so that anybody is able to open those pages.
Thank you, Debbie. Before we move on to the next key result, are there topics that any of the board members think belong in this key result that staff should consider, or other information you'd like to see reported here? I do not see any hands, so I'm going to move on to
Jim had his hand up.
Sorry, Jim, go ahead.
No, I just put it up. Thanks. No, I was just curious. For instance, we have one of those classic situations where we have a resigning board member and need to fill a position within roughly 30 days of it being vacated. I don't know whether, that kind of, might have some special ideas, help, resources, whatever. Usually that's such a short period that you kind of have to go out and beat the bushes and find your own candidate. But, it's a situation that we all face from time to time. So, you've learned a lot about how to handle this. So, thinking that might be a situation you could give boards a hand with as well.
So you're speaking about making board appointments when there's a vacancy outside of an election, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, it's actually funny you bring this up, Jim, because that's exactly what we're thinking of doing this year in time for the annual conference, is developing a document of best practices or protocols on how a board makes an appointment for a vacancy. So it's funny that you just mentioned that because that's definitely something we want to do. And it does happen, unfortunately, more often than you'd like to think, is that you have resignations from boards and many boards scramble, as you said, and beating the bushes to find somebody to serve. So we definitely are aware of that challenge for many of our districts, and we want to be sure that we can help support them with that.
Okay,
And
so
Jim,
yeah,
we did address that on that page as well. Because we've had that come up. And there's a whole list of advertisements, sample advertisements, and sample sheets to put up in the common areas, things like that, that are specifically for vacancies. Also, when I quarterly speak with the administrative assistants for updates from boards, if there are vacancies, I'll always send them that link so that they have some ideas of how to advertise for the vacancies.
that's great, because it is, you get it, and then first it's like, what do we do? And then, once you figure it out, then you gotta act quickly. Yeah, that's super. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we'll move on to key result 2.1.2 now, which pertains to new board members and states by December 31st, 2025, conduct 3 annual webinars for new school board members, first term, with a total of 120 or more registrants and an overall satisfaction rating of 4.5 on a 5-point scale. And I'll hand it back over to Debbie to talk about the activities and progress on this one.
So we redesigned our new member academy. That's what we called it this spring, which was comprised of 2 online sessions for new board members. And we had a healthy number of registrations. We were up to about 80. However, we had a low turnout at both sessions, probably less than 20 attended live. Of course, we can't tell how many registrants may have watched the Zoom recording afterwards, but we were a little disappointed with the low turnout for those live sessions. So we are considering revising this KR to reflect other ways that we already do support new board members, such as through the welcome packet that the VSBA sends out to all newly elected and appointed members. And for those of you who don't know what this packet is, it's quite robust. It actually includes a welcome letter from Sue, a short bio or a short introduction to each of the staff members at the VSBA, information about the VSBA regions and the representatives, all of you. We also include in that packet a VSBA services brochure, a laminated cheat sheet with the open meeting law and Robert's Rules of Order, and also a free copy of the essential work of Vermont school boards. So every newly appointed or elected board member gets that packet from the VSBA. We're also considering a strategy shift in terms of our role in supporting new members with their learning, and that is that the VSBA would provide support to boards to develop and deliver onboarding to their own members, to their own new members. So in that way, we would provide indirect support to new board members by providing direct support to the boards. So this could take the shape of an orientation toolkit, for example. And this, I think, would also help build sustainability of new board member orientation programming at the district level. So if I may, I would welcome your feedback on this idea. And I have a question for all of you. And my question is this: starting in 2025, would your board be interested in the VSBA helping it to onboard its new members using this 2-prong approach? One, by continuing to send out those robust welcome packets from the VSBA, and creating a toolkit that your board could use to do its own training of your new board members. I'm seeing a nod already. Couple nods.
Gaston has a hand up. Go
Yeah,
ahead, Gaston.
so thanks for this. We just appointed someone on Thursday to join our board. Unfortunately, wasn't able to make the first meeting, but my question is, throughout this discussion and as written, it doesn't say anything about appointed. And so I get the feeling that we're sort of going in that direction. But I certainly think that there should be something in the activities and progress that apply to those people that are appointed. So for example, I love the idea of the welcome packet as well as the training for boards to use. Perhaps what that is the objective would be that every person that is appointed outside of the regular election year, that we send those out, and whatever that number is, it equates to like 95% or 98% or what have you. But I do think that that's very important. And by the way, what was very interesting, Jim, is that, as we were looking at this vacancy, we sort of developed a list of potential folks to join. And the person who we actually appointed called me and said that he, for whatever reason, had been following our board minutes and felt that it would be an interesting board to be a part of. And he's got a youngster who's coming up. And so he was really excited about that. So through this discussion, what I'm going to ask him now is, okay, how did you get the idea? Because I'm really curious, Sue, if this, get on board, if perhaps that message got to him somehow, because he does work at an SU, at a neighboring SU. So it's a sort of like interesting. So anyway, my thoughts. Over.
And I will let you know, Gaston, that every 4 months I check in with all the admin assistants for the updates of board members that have gotten on boards for in this way. And so every 4 months I send out board packets, welcome packets to anyone who's gotten on in those 4 months. And in the last 4 months, we've had 45 of them. I'm getting ready to send them out tomorrow. So there is a constant roll.
Sonia. And then Barbara.
I like the idea of, I love the idea of the packet. I think that's really important. While I appreciate the idea of having boards do the work, I am concerned that not all boards have the bandwidth to do that. I know my board right now has zero bandwidth to do anything else. We still don't have a passed budget. So I think that, I wonder if we can make it, you can support boards, but also have resources available so that if a board isn't able to do a very full, robust orientation with a new board member, especially if it's in a, an off schedule appointment kind of thing, if it could be more, here's some links, here's some resources, this is, you're going to have to handle your own orientation because we don't have the ability to support you in it as much as we would like to, but we can't. Does that make sense?
I think you're kind of describing, Sonia, what we have in mind is making a toolkit which just has all the resources linked right in it, right? So you could just open it up and there could be, I'm thinking like a timeline. What is the first 2 weeks for a new board member look like? What does that first meeting look like? What's the first 100 days in the life of a new school board member? And just having some boxes to check. Did they get this? Did they get that? And then make everything hyperlinked so that a board chair or whoever on your board is responsible for doing that onboarding, it won't take them a lot of time. It'll just, everything will be right there at their fingertips. That's what we're hoping to do. And of course, we'll continue to offer all of our services to new board members. And in that welcome packet, it's very clear. We understand that when you're a new board member, it's like drinking water from a fire hose. And so that's why we're here, the VSBA. And so if you need anything, never hesitate to reach out. And we have all of our email addresses. So we're there as backup coaches, if you will, to the districts is how I see it. So that's what we're thinking. So I think what you're saying is very much aligned with what we're thinking.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, we're kind of in the same boat as Sonia. We passed our budget, but we have a lot of other things going on, and we just had one new board member who's been very good natured about not knowing what's going on, and I appreciate, I think the toolkit, I think we need to do a little bit more promoting of what the VSBA has to offer. We tend to get carried away, with our own business. The other thing is, I know Carrie mentioned some resources to try to get new board members. We have had a vacancy from one town now for more months, and we've tried everything, and I don't know if anybody has any more suggestions on how to get somebody on the board. It's very discouraging that it's so difficult to fill those vacancies. Short of knocking, going door to door or something. We're still struggling. So if anybody has any other suggestions, creative ways to find board members, please let me know. Thank you.
Mel?
I wish I had a good idea about how to find members other than, knocking on doors. I guess my question is, is there in the bylaws or, elsewhere, when we onboard new members, is there a requirement that they are onboarded by their local board? Is it their totally room that they could be completely onboarded by the VSBA? And I guess I'm just curious about how that works specifically. And when we have student representatives also, is there kind of a separate, maybe more colloquial way of onboarding that might be more to make it more accessible for our students? Just because I know, going through some of these trainings, I get it mostly, but I'm not sure that, all high school students are, can fully understand it. Or if there's support even to onboard, I guess maybe a forum for I know that we've hosted forums for other student board members in the past, the VSBA has, and I guess my question is that still ongoing, and what does that look like?
Do you want me to start a response, Debbie, and then you can add?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So you asked about bylaws, or if there's any requirements for one versus the other entity orienting. I'm not aware of any requirements about orientation at all. It's just a really, best practice to do it. As far as student board members go, we do have a guide on our website about student board members, and I believe it covers the orientation of student board members. And just wanted to also let you know that Debbie and I have been in conversations with Up for Learning about ways to support student board members, and also just other ways that students can inform school boards in their work. So that's something that we're really interested in pursuing. And Harry, forget Harry's last name, Harry Frank, who was in the same position as Debbie at the VSBA a couple employees ago, he's now with Up for Learnings, and this is something he's working on. So he's very familiar with school boards. So it's really great to work with him on the topic. And the only other thing was I wanted to give a little context for all this entire conversation. The new board member training is something that VSBA has done for a long time, and we've tried a lot of different ways of doing it in order to try to figure out if there's some magic formula to get a high percentage of new board members to participate. And we've tried everything from having a north of the state part of the state meeting and a south part. We did 1 year, Susan Holston traveled around the state and did like 8 or 10 different locations, and every single time we do it, we get a very small percentage of the new board members that participate. So that's why we're trying to think of a new approach. Anything you want to add on all that, Debbie?
No, I would say that as a new board member, when I remember being a new board member, I think I didn't even take advantage of the VSBA new member services. I'll be perfectly honest. And that is because I was just so overwhelmed with learning about my board and figuring out how it works, that the VSBA was there but it wasn't like my focus. And I didn't understand what a valuable resource it is, or it would have been. So I think that's also part of this new strategy that we're considering is like, let's empower and give the tools to the districts, since that's where new board members tend to focus right away, understandably, and give them the ability, give the boards the ability to help onboard their members. And then the VSBA will always be there. And as a board member becomes more experienced and confident, we notice that those board members tend to start then participating in our services and our events and things like that. But I think at the beginning, they're just like, I can speak from my experience, was like a deer caught in headlights at the very beginning, you know?
Thanks, Debbie. We have Jim with a question and Mark. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, just I totally take on board what Debbie just said, and I think that as a part of that, working with the local boards, giving them the resources, also maybe just really pushing them hard on, they should push their new board members to participate in the VSBA new board member training. Because I think, like our board, I think they do a pretty decent job of onboarding. It's a very intentional process on our board where, 3 members or executive committee get together and meet with the person and all that stuff. But in that whole process, they could say, and you really should do this training, because, it just like you said, you start off and you're a fish out of water trying to figure out what you're doing on the board. You have a tendency not to pay attention to something like VSBA and then not recognize, the value that's there. But, from day one, being able to, push board members in that direction could be really valuable for those boards and for the new board members. So.
Mark?
Just a different perspective. We have a long history of having the superintendent involved on the onboarding. And we insist the superintendent spend as much time with the VSBA and following the VSBA as they do the VSA. And then it's just a natural progression to have them do the onboarding for us right after the organizational meeting. And it helps them set the tone for what governance should be. We hire them. They're really good people and it helps us with the bandwidth with the board. So that's worked really well for us for the last 10, 15 years.
Thank you, Mark. Debbie, I have a thought too. I was thinking that just as we do our policy analysis and as we do our superintendent evaluation, sort of like flipping a little bit as an option of how we approach boards, or boards come to us looking for board orientation or for you to come over, approaching it more about helping them set, like you were saying, their own onboarding, but by consulting in how they're doing it, right? So like I really like as something that they either pay for, like how do you set a system, like when VSBA has come to us and does the executive evaluation and then you set your system, right? Like we have a really robust onboarding, but both May and I, we were very organized for that, but not everybody has that. So in looking at what we're going to be being able with the standards that we were going to have to comply, that would be another service that maybe we can have a little revenue to. And the last thing is like, could we have maybe some carrots to get some more board members to come? I don't know what it is, like participate in this webinar and come to, or come, I don't know, a free ticket for a drink. I don't know, like not a drink, but that wouldn't be good because we don't pay for drinks. But like something, think about a carrot that we could give some of those new board members. So a book on, on governance. I don't know, like something that your board can use, and that hopefully I'm not breaking up. I see everybody sort of frozen. Okay. Let's move. I can put my video up too. You can't hear me. Let's keep going because I see that Claire is here with us already. So keep going.
Okay, we'll keep going. And we'll try to go a little bit faster. So we have key result 2.1.3 is about continuing service and states by December 31, 2024, engage at least 40 experienced board members in providing board development content for others and have those 40 or more rate their learning as at least 4.5 on a 5-point scale. So I'll hand it back to Debbie to talk about what we've done with this key result.
So this key result calls for 40 or more experienced board members to provide board development to other boards. Education theory states that our own deepest learning happens when we teach others. So that's kind of what's behind this KR. As you can see, this key result was created as you can see, since this KR was created, it was created actually in 2022 until last month, August, there were 51 experienced board members who provided board development content for others through our webinars, through the new member academy, as workshop leaders at our annual conference, and also at our regional meetings. So what we aim to do is that we're aiming to create a better tracking tool, because some board members have presented content more than once, sometimes more than twice, even more than that. And many of you on this screen probably fall into that category. So as a result, we don't have an exact number of board members who have presented, but rather instances when board members have presented. Does that make sense? Okay. So the other thing that we haven't tracked and are considering whether it should be part of this KR at all is this: having the presenter rate their own learning after they have presented. For those of you on this call or in this meeting who have presented at webinars or at our conference on different topics, would you be amenable to being asked to assess your own learning after such an event? Or could we go on the assumption, knowing about this theory of learning, where our learning happens when we teach others, that a presenter's learning is indeed happening? And I ask this because it would require more time of the volunteer presenters to do an assessment or a survey of some sort. And it also would just create a little bit more work for the VSBA staff. So would love to hear your thoughts on whether you think this is a worthwhile endeavor. Jim.
Yeah, personally, I could see just a quick feedback sort of thing, but I think anything beyond that is it's just a sort of email. And do you have any reflections or thoughts on how it went and whether you gained from it and other people did? Quick sort of thing I think could be useful. I think anything beyond or more structured, when it starts to look like a survey or something, then that starts to feel a little bit cumbersome for all parties.
Yeah, I think we're all surveyed a lot these days. And so I feel like asking people to do one more survey, especially after they've been generous and given us their time to present or to teach something, and then to say, oh, and there's more for you to do now. They might never sign up to do it again. So I like that idea of maybe just a quick email and checking in with a couple questions. They could be standard and we could send to people after. Mel.
I guess I wonder, what is the learning component, or what's the information you're after, right? Like, is it what is learned, or is it about, I'm trying to think of what the outcomes or what the learning outcomes are from presenting. And I guess I'm not really clear on what that would be, other than, was the experience good, or did you get feedback afterwards? Or is it more specifically about, was the forum right? And did you learn more about Zoom? So, I think that's really important. If there's something that we're missing, and we're trying to glean from that questionnaire, then yes. But I think it's, most importantly, that you're specific about what it is that what you're looking for. So it's not an open-ended question. might be helpful. It might be easier to get people to answer that too, because if people don't know what you're looking for, they won't know. I don't know if they'll want to spend the time answering.
That's fair. If we don't know what we're looking for, then they certainly won't know what we're looking for, right?
Right.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Thanks for all of this feedback. It's really helpful. Flor, I think we're a little behind schedule. Do you want us to continue with the
I want
rest
to flip.
of KRs, or do you want we can do those at another meeting?
Yeah, I was wondering if we could just do, I just want to respect Claire's time. So what we could do, we're not, that we could move on onto the task force report, and then present those key, they were part of the packet. So we could also just say right now that they were part of the packet. Do you guys have any specific questions about those last few ones? And then we move on into the next part of the agenda. What do you think, Sue?
To be specific, it would be key result 2.1.4, 2.1.5, and then the one below that that's labeled other that we're going to develop a key result for. So yeah, I think we should go to the task force report, and we could always come back to this if there's time, but if not, we can come back to it at another meeting.
Okay, sounds good. So we're gonna skip also communications with the regions, but we'll do that right after the report from the task force on collaboration to benefit all students. I want to welcome Claire Wool, who has graciously chaired that committee for us, and Sandra are here, who has also staffed and been very organized to help us work with that committee. So it's all yours, Claire. You're muted. You're muted, Claire. Sorry, you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Flora, and thank you, everyone. I wrote all your names down as I saw the screen. I am so appreciative of Zoom to be able to connect with all of you, and I look forward to seeing where you're all from and the regions of the state. Thank you so much for your service on the VSBA. I did write at the request of the VSBA in this month's newsletter a recap of what we have done on the task force to let all our members know where we are in the status of it, and the process of how we came to be. And we sent it to you yesterday. Again, our final meeting, as we planned it out back in January, was September 9th of this week. And so, you might not have had a chance to read all of it, but my opportunity to speak to you tonight is to, answer any questions or, be available to you so that I can report back to the task force as well, those that volunteered on it over the last half a year, and answer any questions and be of assistance. We were graciously, fortunate to pass a resolution a year ago, before this tumultuous year, that really called out by leaders, I would say superintendents and with the input of superintendents and school boards and school board chairs to bring this resolution. I think it's typically done at this, each year in the summer to present at the VSBA annual meeting and vote on it. And then to think that, state legislature passed a commission to do, a more in-depth look, but to follow pursuit of the questions that we had pertaining to the AOE and the State Board of Ed. And as I shared in my memo or letter in the VSBA mailer, it is not, our goal and intention was not the blame game, but to work cohesively to strengthen our state and give legs to the AOE as well as the state board and follow statute. And really, at this time, because of the lack of leadership in the agency until the interim was presented to our state, we are in need of really critical information to do our jobs. So I don't want to be too wordy because you eat, sleep, and breathe it, all of you. And I just want to share, as I did in my letter, sincere appreciation for the stellar leadership of the VSBA, from Sue to Sandra to Flor to our consultant that helped us put this all together. Absolutely outstanding as a professional woman, 58 years old. Really, time is of the essence with all of our work and home life, and to be a part of a task force is daunting for half a year, and at the same time, how effective we were and collaborative, because really, no matter what district we're in and what region we're in, these are fundamental problems that we want to solve. So we were all in agreement with that.
Thank you, Claire. Are there any questions that people had a chance to read the report? Are there any questions for Claire?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here, Sue, and put a face to who I am. And for those of you that potentially are in your region or neighboring regions, to those individuals and volunteers that helped do the work, it was the teamwork of many people that contributed to this. And also, I know we use it a lot, but stakeholders. This is not work that was done in a vacuum. We reached out to everyone we possibly could for feedback and real data to be able to present this in the way that we did. And we look forward to your support. And again, any questions that you might have as we present this to the governor and the legislature. Yes, Neil.
Neil.
Oh, sorry.
Was there anything that came as a surprise?
No, but in a concerning way, when we reached out to the state board, it was very apparent that everyone is struggling, struggling with their positions and direction and lack of resources. And that was an affirmation. So I guess not a surprise, but an affirmation for us to think, wow, do we value the agency and this board by the resources and giving it legs, because it really isn't at a critical time right now where we need to foundationally build it to, comparable to states across the United States. Great question.
Jim?
As sort of a follow-up on that, to the extent that, it's difficult to do things without sufficient resources, then have there been explicit and clear requests for the resources that would be necessary to be able to do the job? Has that been expressed that, have they actually asked for the resources?
And let me rephrase it, not necessarily resources, but attention to supporting. So whether it takes a year to fill a position, or we see people leaving the agency rather than the state attracting talented individuals to work for the agency. So resources as far as talent to be able to be a part of it. And then I would say an example at the state board level, them seeking support and it taking an exorbitant long time, whether it's legal advice or other, that they're just not getting the support that they need. So it's more of a priority, I should say, resources, but prioritizing from the state, this agency's work and the board's work. Yes, Neil. And Flora, sorry if it's your role.
Yeah, sorry for all the questions. So the report has a series of recommendations. Do you anticipate that and some of the recommendations are particular to a specific body. So for example, like the AOE or the state board, do you anticipate that those bodies would push back on the recommendations that are included in the report?
I do not. And the reason for that affirmation of that is our goal going into this was immediately out the gate to speak to, at the time, interim secretary Heather and interim secretary Zoe and board chair Jennifer immediately to say, this is not going to be a surprise to you. These are the things that stakeholders, superintendents, organizations throughout the state that work in public education are struggling with. And these are, not necessarily divulging all our priorities, but they too were acknowledging the needs for those priorities to be spelled out and to be presented in a way that we have. So I'm not saying they were partners in this, but they were partners. They accepted our calls. They accepted our Zoom meetings. They spent time with us. And again, I credit the VSBA's ongoing relationship with the AOE and reputation with elected leaders for the nonpartisan, not biased work for the benefit of all in the state. So thank you for that question.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you, Neil. Hey, Jim, do you have a new question? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry for, hogging things, but, I was just curious in a way, and I have to apologize. I haven't had a chance to read through the entire report at this point, but wondering whether, frankly, Sandra Cameron blew me away quite a while back, something I could never forget, when she tried to quantify the number of requests or requirements put on the AOE and State Board of Education by the legislature. And did that come up in the, it was just a mind-boggling number of new tasks that seemed to be put on them. Was there a sense that that is one of the big problems?
I can't wait for you to read the report. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
If I were to say it very frankly, we are thrilled people want to fulfill their civic role in leading this state in elected roles. But if we could write it as plainly as we could to say, stop everything, stop. Don't create anything new in this next legislative session. We have things that have been passed that we haven't even reviewed whether they're successful or not. So halting, we took out the halt would turn people off because people want to make progress, but we are asking for a review of all the things that have been passed that we should be focusing. So quality versus quantity. So wonderful question. And yes, we went through historically all that has been passed and asked of the education, public education and AOE over the last couple of years. So you're absolutely right. Great.
Thank you. Claire, are there any other, I don't see any other hands, and we can't thank you enough for spending some time with us. We know how busy you are, but also we can't thank you enough for all the work. It was wonderful to collaborate with you, and we look forward to continuing the work. Oh, Neil, you have a question.
Sorry. And I don't know if we need to keep Claire here for this, but what happens next, right? So I heard that this goes to the governor. Does the task force stay intact for some period of time? Is this now just a VSBA product and the VSBA pushes this? Do we plan on working with legislators? I see one with their hand up about possibly developing bill language that might address some of the recommendations in the report. Like what were next steps on this?
Sue, do you want?
Sure. So the next step would be a presentation of this report at the annual business meeting to sort of close the loop, because this originated at the last annual business meeting with a resolution. So we want the members to know how it was handled and resolved. And after that, the resolution, I believe, calls for the report to go to the governor and the legislature. So at that point, we would be able to send it. And we would also, because it so closely relates to the work of the Commission on the Future of Public Education, it would go to the Commission on the Future of Public Education.
Mhm.
And we're going to affirm it tonight. That's our job as the board tonight. Martine, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
I do. First of all, thank you everyone who worked on this. I gave it a quick look over, but I haven't really dug into it, and I'm very much looking forward to digging into it. I did wonder if we as a VSBA board will have a chance to kind of unpack it together as a group. And I'm also, you know, as a legislator thinking about, as you all know, when folks are up for re-election, they like to point to the bills that they've sponsored and the work that they've done in the legislature. And that's directly tied to, you know, writing lots of bills and getting them placed on the wall in their committee room. So I'm wondering how we can sort of change that mindset, especially when it comes to an education committee. So I'm hoping that there's going to be follow-up. This report will get sent to the legislature, sent to the committee, the commission. But, you know, I'm just thinking that like Senate and House leadership, maybe, you know, maybe it would be a good idea to invite them to one of our VSBA meetings or to have a more formal conversation with them about what this could look like in the future. Just some thoughts.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Martine. And we have done that in the past, and we could certainly do that. And this report would provide a great topic, you know, for us to talk about with the leadership. So we usually do that either in December or January. Lately, we haven't been having a January meeting, so we may want to try to do that like for the December board meeting.
Great idea.
Thank you, Martine. Michael?
Are there any thoughts about using this as a vehicle for press or public relations work? I feel like we lose the battle a lot of times in sort of the public messaging. And has there any thought been given to how we might leverage this work to get some, I don't know if it's positive publicity, but at least get some of our concerns out there?
We hadn't really spoken about that, Michael, but it might be something to consider, you know, when we do send the report, maybe doing a press release at the same time. Do you have other ideas?
I don't see any other hands up. I think that's a great idea. So,
yeah, I mean, do we, I'm not sure if this is a thing in this area. Do we do press briefings with press leaders or anything like that? Or is that something that doesn't get done in Vermont?
It's done, I would say, more frequently during the legislative session. But yeah, it can be done.
Mm-hmm.
thank you, Michael. Mel?
Following up kind of on what Martine was saying about, you know, if we're going to ask them not to be passing more bills, right? Maybe it's worth distilling some of this information into literally a check sheet of when things get done and or how they get done or how they're addressed, so that we can start recognizing that these items have been addressed one by one. There's a lot of information, there's a lot of change, there's a lot of requirements here. And I do see that there's a lot of recommendations. And maybe this isn't the work of the commission, maybe it's something the VSBA wants to undertake, but just making it easy to see like how much progress are they making on these bills or at least on the work that's being done. So it's not new bills, but recognition of the fact that some of these things have been checked off and acknowledged.
Yeah, and I would say even the goal is knowing the commission's timeline. And really needing the commission to focus on that dissemination of information and be able to present it in a way without looking to, so it's in collaboration, we thought, with the work of the commission as well. So not just this task report asking, hey, wait, but knowing that the commission needs time to flush all the information out to present a data-driven report.
Thank you, Claire. Barbara?
Yes, thank you. This might be slightly off topic, but I wanted to bring it up and I didn't know where or when, but in rural areas, in rural, there's a lot of rural schools. And there's several people have expressed real concern about what seems to be an agenda of huge consolidation and closing of schools in the future and not paying attention to rural needs. Because just as an example, one superintendent went to a meeting, was asking a lot of questions of Acting Secretary Sanders about facilities planning, which we're doing and so on. And she basically would not give her an answer. She just ignored her questions or was not a straight answer. And Secretary Levine, everybody knows what's going on at North Country High School with the PCBs probably. And, they're really struggling. He got furious with their leadership saying you should just send all the students to Linden State College campus. Now, these are freshmen in high school going to a college campus that's 35, 40 miles away in the wintertime the whole thing is so absurd and showed such an insensitivity to a rural setup. And it's very concerning to a lot of rural educators. And I just wondered if other people have you heard those kinds of things going on, if there's this undercurrent of and it's not the state board and it's not the Department of Agency of Education. It's coming from other places, obviously the administration and probably policymakers in the legislature. And I think as the VSBA, we should I'd like to bring it up to see if anyone else has any of those concerns or has heard any of those kinds of things themselves. And maybe we don't have time to do it now, but.
So Barbara, I'm wondering if we could just concentrate right now on the task that we're at hand, right, with the task force report, and the board could, thank Claire, affirm the report as submitted, and then we can add your concerns to our next to our new business, or that could be a reflection. Remember, I asked at the beginning of the meeting if there was something that you want to reflect or highlight or something that is going on, and we'll have some time at the end to reflect on that so that we can finish up. That's okay. That's okay. We'll get into that. So I think I would love for Claire to be here when we affirm the report. So I'm wondering if we could have a motion to affirm the report of the task force. Mel, or I don't just speak up. I think we had Mel and Martine already with their hands up. Sorry, Barbara. I was just trying to give them some time. Is that right, Mel?
Yeah, I'm happy to make the motion to affirm the report.
And I'm happy to second.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Martine. So Mel is affirming the report from the Task Force on Collaboration to benefit all students. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
We have all ayes, so the motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, team. Okay.
Shout out to Gaston. Thank you so much for being a constant companion on the report as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Thanks, Gaston.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claire.
Okay. Okay. So let's see how we're doing on time. So 24. I think I would like us to move back to number 6, Sue, and we report on the other key. We finish up the last part of our objectives at the key KR 215. I think we were missing. Is that okay? And we move into
yes.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move into communication with our regions. Carrie.
Okay, are we doing the
And-
KRs or are we doing the communication with regions?
We were gonna move to communication with regions number 6
Okay.
on our agenda,
Okay.
and we were good.
All right, let me just move the KRs down to the end. Okay. So earlier today, you all received another opportunity to speak with your regional school board members. We sent out a sample email. It had information in it about the business meeting, the upcoming annual business meeting, as well as the conference. Again, I just wanted to reiterate that this is sample language. You can change it however you'd like it. Just let us know in the communications tool in the on the tool page. Just let us know if you sent it out and who you sent it to, if it's like all of your region or board chairs or what have you. I did update all of your contact information as of, I think it was the 5th of September. So your contact information should be up to date in your communication tool. And I think I'm going to, are there any questions on that? Or is there anyone that that would like some help with that? Or feel free to email me if you want some technological help with that. I'm glad to help out to get those emails out to your local boards. Are there any questions with that? All right, and then the only other thing I was going to talk about is, let me just share my screen. Here. It's the same topic, and this was in our strategic plan monitoring tool. This is our regional representatives. This is the emails that you sent. The first part of the KR was to create the baseline for last year, which was done. You can see along here is the regions. Last year's baseline is complete now. And we already have some regions like Eastern Chittenden who've bypassed last year's baseline. So we're good. We're going in the right direction here. If I think it's like Windsor and Kingdom South, if there's anything I can do to help you to get some emails out to your local boards, just let me know. I'd be glad to help.
Thank you, Carrie. Yeah, it looks like there's no question, so we have a little time. Do you guys want to finish up your reports? I was expecting a
Sure,
little
we'll
bit more
go,
time. Yeah,
we'll go to key result 2.1.4, which pertains to board chairs. And states by December 31st, 2025, annually provide the required joint training for board chairs and superintendents in person and electronically, having at least 80 chairs participating and an overall satisfaction rating of 4.5 on a 5-point scale. And I'll hand it back to Debbie to report on the progress on this key result.
So over the last several years, board chairs and superintendents have indicated that they would like to have more flexible opportunities to fulfill this requirement to both accommodate busy schedules as well as recognizing varying levels of experience. The KR says that we will reach 80 pairs of superintendents and board chairs. We feel that this is a reach target. Right now, we have very little data for this year, 2024. However, we will have much more data to report to you after the fall conference because there are 2 opportunities on October 24th with the pre-conference workshop, which is for superintendents and board officers. And obviously a board chair is one of those officers. So we hope we'll get a good turnout at the pre-conference workshop. And then also at the conference itself on Friday, the 25th. If a board chair and superintendent attends together, they would actually meet all 8 hours of their required training. So we really, again, I think we've heard it twice said already, we all really would rely on you to help us get board members to go. And we have lots of superintendents that have signed up and registered for the conference. And we'd love to ensure that as many board chairs can get there as well. I just wanted to bring your attention to one of those ways we're trying to do the training. And this is something new that we created, which is a written document. It's the Leadership Expedition Guide that VSA and VSBA put together. It has lots of ways that a board chair and a superintendent can meet the requirements on their own. So these are options that they can take advantage of at whatever time they want. It's not like attending a conference together. But the hard part with this, of course, and I've talked to Carrie about it, is we just don't have any way to track how many people are using that leadership guide. That's just a challenge, and we're going to have to figure that out.
Any questions for Debbie or any other information board members would like to see reported here before we go on to the next key result, which is 2.1.5? Okay, I'll go on to 2.1.5, which pertains to whole. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say real quick, I don't mean to keep harping on this like checklist thing, but I'm wondering too, like when you're doing, if you're talking about how many people are using these resources, you know, might us local boards have some kind of a checklist or something that we're checking in once a month or once a year kind of with our local boards. I mean, you know, just to say how many people have used this resource or that resource. And certainly we can ask how many people are using them. But if there's, again, data you're specifically looking for, like, and you want to send us information on, you know, how many people are using XYZ, I think we'd be happy to send that around. There's so many resources on there, right, that I'm not going to be able to ask everybody specifically and people might forget. And that's why I'm, you know, suggesting maybe a quick check box.
Thanks, Mel. Did I interrupt you, Debbie? I'm sorry if I did.
No, you did not.
Okay, we'll go on to KR 2.1.5 then, which pertains to whole boards and states by December 31, 2025, annually facilitate at least 60 sessions of 1 hour or more of whole board development with staff and consultants. So that means VSBA staff and consultants could be counted toward this number, with an overall satisfaction rating of 4.5 on a 5-point scale. And this is the last one that I'll hand back over to Debbie to report on.
So with this KR, we are discussing the possibility of changing it slightly from number of sessions to number of hours, because some of the trainings and retreats, actually most of them that we do, are 2+ hours. So we're proposing to modify the KR to something like this: by December 31st, 2025, annually facilitate at least 60 hours of whole board development led by VSBA staff and or consultants. As you can see on the tool itself, we are about 1/3 of the way to making the goal as of August of this year. We probably won't make it to 60 hours because board training requests for retreats slow way down after August. And from here on out until the conference, I spend most of my time working on the conference between September and October. However, I think looking ahead to 2025, we are probably, even though this is a little bit of a reach target, we should be able to achieve it, because now we have David on board with us, and he's starting to receive requests to do some board training specific to his area of expertise on open meeting law and Robert's Rules of Order. And we're also bringing on a new policy governance training consultant later this month. So I think we will be in fairly good shape for 2025 to reach this goal of 60 hours of board training.
That's fantastic. Any feedback on this one from the board? I can't see everyone, so if there's, just jump in if you have feedback.
I didn't see any hands up, Sue.
Okay. Then we'll just move on to the last one, which is one that I'll report on. We don't have a key result for this one, but we're we're considering developing one because it is about requests from board members and superintendents for information and guidance on topics related to school board work. And as you can see, this is at the top of page 29 of your meeting packet. VSBA receives questions on a regular basis from school board members on a wide range of topics. And recently the questions have covered things such as annual work plan for boards, board chair training, board misconduct. We had 3 questions about that recently, board operations, 5 questions, conflict of interest. There was several questions about that, filling board vacancies, another bunch of questions on that, open meeting law, 6 questions, model policies, there were 12 questions. So those are the type of topics that we get, and many more. As I said, we don't currently have a key result associated with these communications, but we started keeping track of them. We didn't used to, keep track of them in any way. We just responded, but now we're keeping track of them because we really want to understand, first of all, how often do members utilize the VSBA as a resource in this way? We really like to be able to answer questions that members have, and it's definitely a significant amount of time that the staff spends on it. So we wanted to be able to look at how often members are utilizing the VSBA. And then also, really importantly, how much staff time is devoted to answering the questions and what topics our members have questions about, because that can inform future webinars, future conference workshops, etc. So we really think it's useful information to know what these topics are that we're getting questions about in order to inform future education for our members. So with that, we've covered all of the key results under Objective 2.1 in the Systems and Resources Goal area. And the next time we review this goal area, we'll focus on Objective 2.2, which is improve and promote the essential work of Vermont school boards. And that concludes the strategic plan monitoring report.
Thank you, Sue. Any other questions before we move on? Otherwise, we're going to move on into our consent agenda. I don't see any hands up. So I'm looking for a motion for August minutes, please. Okay, not everybody at the same time. Go ahead. Thank you, Bart. A second. Thank you, Nancy. Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor of approving the minutes as submitted, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. I think the ayes have it. Any opposed? Any abstentions? I don't see any. So the motion carries. Thank you, everybody. So before we have any new business besides what Barbara was bringing up. So I was going to use it because usually we don't get a lot of hands up here. Oh, Mark, do you have your hand up for new business? No. Okay. So I was going to use a little bit of this time before we went into our executive session so that we could still have our staff with us to go back to that question, then, reflecting on that celebration of public education that we're going to do in October. What is happening in your schools this month that you are proud of and that you would like to highlight. Now I'm not necessarily saying at the conference, like that, what is going on. We heard Barbara's concern on the look at rural education and consolidation. Any Mark Kaufman?
My apologies for the delay. My local school board asked me to pass on a huge thank you to VSBA and its cooperating partners regarding the budget documents and resources. It's been a huge help already, and we look forward to that guidance being very effective for us as we move forward with yet another devastating budget year. An allied question that I have for all of the VSBA and, again, cooperating partners is, have we ever engaged with economists who work at the statewide or the macroeconomic level about state education finances, or done an overall literature review of best practices or things that have worked in other states. That's it. Thank you.
Displaying floor
Thank you, Mark.
Stop my video. Mute my audio.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mark. And I think the commission is doing that work. It is going to do that work. The finance part of the commission is going to be engaged in that work. Yeah, I don't know if you have something to add to that, Sue. Or
Just that we do have a close relationship with the person at the Joint Fiscal Office who does the work with the education committees. And she's always very willing to have discussions with us, you know, provide any information that we're asking for. And she does work with the state economist.
thank you, Sue. Martine. You're muted, Martine, and hopefully you can't hear me.
Are we celebrating our things at this moment?
Celebrating, yes. Anything that you want to share with us?
Story thing to share. We had the second part of our board retreat last night, and we celebrated our reading scores, which have gone up on average 5% over the last year. Yep, which is a big deal. We adopted a more science-based reading program a couple years ago, and it's really bearing fruit. So we're super excited, and yeah, thanks. That feels like a win. Thank you.
Thank you, Martine, for sharing that. That's exciting. Any others that would like to make us happy today? No? Okay. So seeing none, Sue, we're gonna move into executive session, but I will want to make sure that I can share my screen before you guys leave.
I tried to make you a co-host, but it's not letting me. So I'm thinking maybe you're already a co-host.
Oh, maybe I am. Let me see.
Yes, you are.
It's setting it great. It's saying that I can share screen. Okay.
Okay, good. Okay,
So
thank you.
Thank you. So could I have a motion to go into executive session so Carrie can get that into the minutes? And then Nancy moves that we go into executive session, and second by everybody. Tara Sweet. Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand. They left already, so.
All right.
Okay.
Tara Sweet,
have
just
it.
1 second. Let me put this in.
Yeah.
Tara Sweet. Okay. And it's unanimous?
Unanimous. Thank
okay,
you.
Great. Let me just
and
say
I'll
this,
get you
and
the time the time when we get out.
And I'm sure you want me to turn off the recording, right?
Please.